Samaritan is directed by Julius Avery and stars Sylvester Stallone, Jovan Walton, and Pilo Asbeck. A young boy learns that a superhero who was thought to have gone missing after an epic battle 20 years ago may in fact still be around. I'm a huge Sylvester Stallone fan. I grew up on the Rocky franchise. I grew up on Judge Dredd. I even grew up on The Expendables. Anything Sylvester Stallone related that comes out, I will always see because I have a personal bias towards the man. He is awesome. And when I heard that he was going to be in a superhero movie of all things that wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy, I was hyped. Even if the movie wasn't amazing, if it was good or even just entertaining, I was sold. This had my name written all over it. And that just makes it all the more hurtful to say just how disappointing this movie was. Are there good things in the movie? Yeah, of course. For one, the action is really good. There's not a lot of it in the movie, but when it's there, it is really cool. Sylvester Stallone is still kicking ass to this day in movies like Last Blood. So in this movie, where he has superhuman strength of all things to go with those awesome fight scenes, it just speaks for itself. And as two-dimensional as the movie may seem on the surface, if you go deeper, there are some interesting ideas that this movie sort of plays with. For one, the legacy of the usual good guy Samaritan and the legacy of the usual bad guy Nemesis is sort of shrouded in this controversy because even though Samaritan was labeled as the good guy, he didn't really help those who were in the more poverty-stricken areas of the city. And even though Nemesis was considered the villain by the mass media, he did apparently help people in those areas by basically just beating up who was putting them down. The movie does play with that class dynamic a few times, especially with its villain, and on that end, I do appreciate it. And even though the movie does have some good ideas and some good action, the downsides really do pile up on top of all those good things. Let's start with the chemistry between Stallone and Walton's characters. I didn't really feel anything for the connection between these two. Throughout most of the movie, they just seem sort of annoyed by each other, and maybe if the two had some really likable traits that the movie shined a light on, maybe that would have helped, but honestly, they don't really spend a lot of time shining lights on their better traits. Not to mention the fact that even though the two actors do a decent job, along with the rest of the cast, they're not the best performances, and I feel like even with all of the drawbacks from the script, some really great acting could have saved it, and even though the acting isn't bad, it's not good enough to save the actors from the downsides of the script. And that does bring me to the pacing and the structure of the movie, which is just sort of topsy-turvy and kind of rushed. The movie's a little over an hour and a half long, and I feel like if they wanted this movie to be really good, it needed to be probably a good solid 2 hours. Because what we're stuck with in just an hour and a half is a movie about two characters that don't really have the best chemistry that we're supposed to care about their relationship with each other, and a movie that doesn't really know who it wants to focus on more. There are times where it seems like it wants to focus on Stallone's character more, but most of the time it seems like it wants to focus on Walton's character more. It just seems unbalanced. Like they want to give both characters an equal amount of development, but they just don't have the time to do it. And lastly, as I was alluding to with the past two complaints, the writing. The writing for this movie isn't the best. A lot of the dialogue in this movie is really corny, really overly dramatic, which sometimes is fine because, hey, it's a superhero movie and sometimes comic books are a little overly dramatic. But a lot of times, especially with the news broadcasts, the writing for those scenes are so hilariously overdramatic. It's like the movie wanted to emulate the news broadcast sequences from The Dark Knight Returns, and instead, it just ended up sounding like a pastor at a church preaching too much. And there is a twist in this movie that is so blatantly obvious from the first minute of the film, and when it's finally revealed, We know! We all know this! We predicted it from the first minute of your movie. This is not a surprise. And what's even more nonsensical about it is that maybe if this twist was revealed like halfway through the movie, maybe something could have been done with it. But it's revealed in the climax of the film, when practically nothing can be done with it now. There was a lot of potential with this film, a lot of good ideas thrown into the mix, but when you get down to it, the only thing that comes to my head when thinking about Samaritan is disappointing. The action sequences are kinda cool, and the film has some interesting concept that it tries to play around with, but the pacing is so unbalanced and rushed. The chemistry between actors is practically non-existent, and the writing is so corny and predictable. What I hoped would end up being the next Iron Man or Man of Steel ended up being more like the next Constantine than anything else. I'm going to give Samaritan a C-. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite Sylvester Stallone movie? For me, easily, it's Rocky. The first Rocky. That movie is an absolute masterpiece. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.